The massive doors of Earth's main military station opened slowly. Through them came a ship that nobody had seen in 50 years. It was old, scarred, and looked ready to fall apart. Paint peeled off its hull. Burn marks covered its sides. 1. Engines sputtered black smoke. Admiral James stood at the command center window. His mouth dropped open. Behind him, 20 other admirals from different human colonies watched in silence. They had come for the annual fleet review, where Earth showed its newest warships. Nobody expected this. "What is that piece of junk?" asked Admiral Blake from Mars Colony. He pointed at the old ship limping toward the docking bay. "Sir, the ship identifies itself as the Thunder," said a young officer at the scanner station. "Registration shows it belongs to Captain Robert Walker." Every admiral in the room turned to stare at the officer. Admiral James grabbed the scanner. "Report himself." His hands shook as he read it. "That's impossible," he said. "Robert Walker died in the First Galactic War. That was 50 years ago." But the scanner didn't lie. The Thunder was real, and it was docking at their station right now. The admirals rushed to the docking bay. They arrived just as the ship's ramp lowered. Smoke poured out. Then, through the smoke, walked an old man. He had white hair, deep wrinkles, and moved with a cane. But his eyes were sharp and clear. "Hello, James," the old man said with a smile. "You got fat." Admiral James couldn't speak. This was his grandfather, the hero who had disappeared during humanity's first war with alien races. The man everyone thought was dead. Grandfather Robert? James finally managed to say. "How where he been?" Robert Walker laughed. It was a rough sound, like stones grinding together. "That's a long story, boy. But first, you might want to look at my ship properly. Don't let her ugly outside fool you." Admiral Blake stepped forward. "Mr. Walker, with respect, that ship looks ready for the scrapyard. We have modern battleships now. Shields that can stop planet-killer weapons. Guns that can crack moons. Your old ship, my old ship," Robert interrupted, "just flew through crawl space, Vorthan territory, and the dead zone. And I'm still here." The room went silent. The dead zone was impossible to cross. 13 modern fleets had tried. None came back. "That's not possible," said Admiral Reed from Jupiter Station. "The dead zone has gravity storms that tear apart anything that enters. Even our best ships with latest technology can't survive there." Robert tapped his cane on the ground. "Your best ships are too fancy. Too many computers. Too much automatic stuff. The Thunder? She's simple. When a gravity storm hits, I fix her with my own hands. When the computer fails, I fly her manually. When the shields go down, her armor holds." He walked past the admirals toward a window overlooking his ship. "You all forgot something important. Wars aren't won by the fanciest gun. They're won by the person holding it. A First Galactic War taught us that, but you forgot." Young Lieutenant David, James's aide, couldn't help himself. "Sir, what happened in the First War?" "The records are classified beyond our level." Robert's eyes went dark. "We were losing. Earth had 20 ships against 10,000 enemy vessels. Everyone said humans would become slaves or worse. But we won. You want to know how?" Everyone leaned in. "We stopped fighting like them and started fighting like humans. We got creative. We got stubborn. We got mean when we had to. The Thunder here. She's killed more enemy ships than your entire pretty fleet combined." Admiral James looked at the old ship with new eyes. Suddenly, those scars didn't look like damage. They looked like battle honors. Each burn mark was a story. Each dent was a victory. "Grandfather," James said, "why did you come back now?" Robert's face turned serious. "Because they're coming back, boy. The ones from the First War. They've been building up for 50 years. And your shiny new fleet? It won't stop them. But the Thunder and I? We still remember how to fight dirty. The admirals exchanged worried looks. If Robert Walker had returned, if the Thunder was here, and something big was about to happen. Asterisk, the war room of Earth Military Command had never been this tense. 50 admirals sat around a massive table, each representing different human colonies across the galaxy. At the head sat Fleet Admiral Stone, Supreme Commander of all human forces. Next to him, looking completely out of place in his worn civilian clothes, sat Robert Walker. Admiral Stone activated the holographic display. 3 days ago, our deep space sensors detected movement in the outer rim. A fleet of ships, origin unknown, heading toward human space. The hologram showed thousands of red dots moving in formation. The admirals started talking all at once. How many ships? Asked Admiral Crystal from Venus. Current count is 15,000, Stone replied. But more keep appearing. Robert leaned back in his chair. It creaked loudly. It's the Alliance, he said simply. The same ones from 50 years ago. Admiral Blake slammed his hand on the table. That's impossible. We destroyed the Alliance in the First War. You were there. We destroyed their first fleet, Robert corrected. But the Alliance had many worlds. They've been rebuilding, learning, preparing. And now they want revenge. Admiral Stone pulled up more data. Our current fleet consists of 8,000 ships. Each one is equipped with latest technology. Plasma shields, quantum torpedoes, AI targeting systems. We can, Robert laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. You really don't get it, do you? Let me tell you what happened last time. He stood up, his cane clicking on the floor as he walked to the hologram. First War. Humanity had 20 ships. Old mining vessels we slapped guns on. The Alliance had 10,000 warships. Each one could destroy a moon. The room was silent. Everyone knew humanity won, but nobody knew how. They came at us with perfect formation, Robert continued. Their shields were impenetrable. Their weapons could vaporize our ships in one shot. By all logic, we should have lost in 10 minutes. He touched the hologram, and it changed to show an old battle recording. But humans don't fight with logic. We fight with something else. Captain Maria of the mining ship Digger flew her ship straight into their flagship's engines. No shields, no weapons working, just pure momentum. Took out their command ship and 3 others. The admirals watched the grainy footage in shock. The small human ship, barely visible, ramming into a vessel 100 times its size. Captain Tom of the cargo hauler Big Boy, Robert went on, filled his hold with nuclear mining charges. Pretended to surrender. When they brought him aboard, their dreadnought for interrogation, he detonated everything. Took half their leadership with him. Young Lieutenant David, who had been quietly taking notes, raised his hand. Sir, you're describing suicide missions. I'm describing humanity, son, Robert replied. When pushed to the edge, we don't break. We bite. The Alliance learned that the hard way. Admiral Reed stood up. Mr. Walker, surely you're not suggesting we use such tactics again? We're civilized now. We have proper military doctrine. Robert walked over to Reed. Despite being shorter and older, he somehow seemed more dangerous. Civilized? Proper? Those words will get you killed. The Alliance thinks you've gone soft. They think 50 years of peace made you weak. He turned to address everyone. Your pretty ships, your fancy computers, your perfect formations. The Alliance has been watching. They know every strategy you have, every weapon system, every weakness. Admiral Stone frowned. Then what do you suggest? Robert smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. We remind them why humans were the scary story they told their children. We fight like humans again. Unpredictable, stubborn, willing to do whatever it takes. Admiral James stood up. Grandfather, the Thunder is one ship, an old ship. What can one ship do against 15,000? One ship? Robert walked back to his seat. Boy, the Thunder isn't just a ship. She's a survivor. She's got tricks your computers can't even imagine. Manual override on everything. Analog backups for when their EMPs hit. And most importantly, he pulled out a small device from his pocket. It looked ancient, held together with tape and wire. What is that? Admiral Stone asked. This, Robert said, is why I spent 30 years in the dead zone. This is what I found there. The Alliance's biggest fear. The weapon they thought was destroyed. Admiral leaned forward. During the First War, Robert explained, human scientists created something desperate, something that should never have worked. They called it the chaos drive. It doesn't follow physics. It doesn't follow logic. It just ... works. And it drives the Alliance insane because they can't understand it. Admiral Blake skeptically asked, one device will save us? Robert's smile grew wider. One device? Who said I only found one? The Admirals followed Robert through the narrow corridors of the Thunder. The ship's interior was even worse than its exterior. Wires hung from the ceiling. Panels were held in place with industrial tape. The lights flickered constantly. Admiral Blake covered his nose. This ship smells like burning oil and old socks. That's the smell of survival, Robert replied, not looking back. Your clean ships smell like defeat. They reached the engine room. What they saw inside made them stop and stare. The room was filled with strange devices, each one different, all connected by cables and pipes that seemed to follow no logical pattern. What in the name of Earth is this? Admiral Stone asked. This, Robert said proudly, is 40 years of scavenging in the dead zone. Every piece of technology the Alliance lost trying to cross it. Every experiment they abandoned. Every weapon they thought was too dangerous. Lieutenant David scanned one device with his tablet. The screen immediately went black and started smoking. Sir, these energy readings are impossible. They're showing negative mass, inverted time flow, and something my scanner just calls error. Robert picked up the smoking tablet and tossed it aside. That's why you don't use computers near them. The Alliance builds everything with logic, with computers, with perfect calculations. These devices? They're chaos incarnate. They're everything the Alliance can't understand. Admiral James touched one of the devices carefully. It felt warm and seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. How do you control them? You don't, Robert said. You just point them in the right direction and hope for the best. Sometimes they teleport you behind enemy lines. Sometimes they turn enemy shields into flowers. Once, I swear, one turned an Alliance destroyer into a giant space whale that started eating other ships. The admirals looked at each other, unsure. If Robert was joking, Admiral Reed shook his head. This is insane. You're talking about using unpredictable, dangerous technology that could backfire on us. Exactly, Robert exclaimed. That's what makes it perfect. The Alliance plans for everything. They have contingencies for contingencies. But they can't plan for chaos. They can't strategize against random. He led them deeper into the ship. They passed a room full of what looked like coffee machines welded to missile launchers. Another room had garden gnomes connected to the navigation system. Are those ... garden gnomes? Admiral Crystal asked. Found them on a destroyed colony ship, Robert explained. Turns out, if you run shield frequency through them, they create a field that makes Alliance targeting computers see double, sometimes triple. Once saw an Alliance fleet spend 3 hours shooting at shadows. They reached the bridge. It was the only clean, organized part of the ship. But even here, nothing was standard. Every console had manual switches and analog dials alongside broken digital displays. Robert sat in the captain's chair, which was held together with duct tape. This ship has survived everything because she doesn't rely on any one system. Computers. Fail, we go manual. Shields drop, the armor holds, weapons jam, we ram them. Admiral Stone studied the bridge carefully. Mr. Walker, I admit your unconventional approach has merit. But one ship, even with these chaos devices, can't stop 15,000. Robert pressed a button on his chair. A hidden panel opened. In the floor. Inside were hundreds of small devices, each one glowing with different colors. These are chaos seeds, he said. Miniature versions of the chaos drive. They can be attached to any ship. Your 8,000 vessels could each carry one. Admiral Blake picked one up. It was no bigger than his fist, but it felt like it weighed nothing and everything at the same time. What do they do? Different things each time, Robert admitted, but always something the enemy doesn't expect. In the First War, we won because we surprised them. These will give us surprise again. Young Lieutenant David had found another tablet and was taking notes. Sir, how do we train crews to use technology that's unpredictable? Robert stood up and looked out the bridge window at the fleet of modern warships outside. You don't train them to use it. You train them to be human. To adapt, to improvise, to survive. The Alliance follows rules. We break them. Admiral James joined his grandfather at the window. You really think this will work? I know it will, Robert said, because I've been testing it for 40 years. Every pirate, every hostile alien, every impossible situation. The Thunder survived because we embraced chaos instead of fighting it. He turned to face all the admirals. Give me 30 days. Let me train your crews. Not in tactics or strategies, but in being unpredictably human. The Alliance won't know what hit them. Asterisk, the training began at dawn. 8,000 ship captains gathered in the largest hangar on Earth Station. They expected military drills and tactical simulations. What they got was Robert Walker standing on a crate with a megaphone that looked older than most of them. Forget everything you learned in the academy, he shouted. Today, you learn to fight like humans. Captain Frank of the battleship Titan raised his hand. Sir, we are humans. No, Robert pointed his cane at him. You're robots pretending to be human. You follow protocols. You trust computers. You fight fair? Real humans? We fight dirty. He jumped down from the crate, moving surprisingly. Fast for his age. First lesson. Your computer is not your friend. Captain Frank, your ship has the most advanced AI in the fleet, correct? Yes, sir. It can calculate 10 million battle scenarios per second. And what happens when it can't calculate anymore? Robert pulled out a small device and pressed a button. Every screen in the hangar went static dot. The captains panicked, reaching for their tablets, their communicators all dead. This, Robert announced, is a baby EMP. The Alliance has ones that can fry a whole star system. Now, what do you do? Captain Frank stood silent, lost without his displays. Robert walked over to an old manual fire alarm on the wall and pulled. The loud bell rang through the hangar. You improvise. You use what works. Bells, flags, shouting really loud. Whatever gets the job done. Over the next week, Robert put them through impossible scenarios. He made them fly simulators with half the controls removed. He had them navigate using only stars and gut instinct. He taught them to fix engines with chewing gum and prayer. Captain Lisa of the destroyer Lightning complained on day 3. This is ridiculous. I'm supposed to command my ship by banging on pipes? If the comms are down, yes, Robert replied. 2 bangs means turn left, 3 means turn right. 1 long bang means shoot everything. Simple. But the real shock came when Robert introduced the chaos seeds. Each captain was given one to install on their ship. Captain Marcus of the cruiser Storm was the first to test his. He pressed the activation button during a simulation. His ship suddenly split into 5 copies. Each one real, each one responding to his commands. "What the hell?" Marcus shouted. "Congratulations." Robert laughed. "You just confused every targeting computer in 1,000 light years. The copies last about 10 minutes. Use them wisely." Captain Alice of the frigate Swift activated hers next. Her ship's weapons started firing flowers. Actual, physical flowers at high velocity. "This is useless," she cried. Then one flower hit a target drone. The drone turned into a butterfly and flew away. Robert nodded approvingly. Alliance shields are designed to stop energy and projectiles. Nobody designed them to stop transformation flowers. Useless? That butterfly used to be their best drone. Day after day, the captains learned to embrace the insanity. Captain John discovered his chaos seed made his ship invisible, but only when he sang old Earth songs. Captain Eva found hers could teleport, but only backwards and diagonal. Admiral James watched from the observation deck with the other admirals. "They're actually getting good at this," Admiral Stone admitted. Yesterday, Captain Frank manually piloted his ship through an asteroid field blindfolded, using only engine vibrations to navigate. And Captain Lisa, added Admiral Crystal, she orchestrated a fleet maneuver using nothing but colored flares and interpretive dance. Robert joined them, looking tired but satisfied. They're remembering how to be human, how to adapt, how to survive when everything goes wrong. Admiral Blake still looked skeptical. But will it work in real combat? As if to answer, alarms suddenly blared across the station. Real alarms, not training ones. "Alliance scouts!" shouted a technician. 3 ships just appeared at the edge of our system. Robert smiled. "Time for a real test. Send Captain Marcus and 2 others. Tell them to use everything I taught them." 20 minutes later, they watched through long-range sensors. The 3 human ships approached the Alliance scouts. The alien vessels immediately formed perfect attack formation. Shields up, weapons. Charging. Captain Marcus activated his chaos seed. His ship split into 5. Captain Ava's ship teleported backwards, appearing behind the scouts. Captain John's ship vanished entirely while he sang Yellow Submarine. The Alliance scouts spun in confusion, firing at copies, missing the teleporting ship, searching for the invisible one. Then Marcus did something beautiful. He flew all 5 copies straight at them in different directions. The scouts retreated, jumping to hyperspace immediately. The command center erupted in cheers. Robert turned to the admirals. The Alliance just learned something important. Humans are done being predictable. The Alliance fleet arrived 3 days later. 15,000 ships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Each ship was identical, pristine, moving in synchronization like a massive space ballet. Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of Earth's flagship, the Sovereign. Around him, the 8,000 human ships waited. They looked chaotic in comparison. No formation, some upside down, others drifting sideways. "Alliance fleet is sending a message," reported the communications. "Officer." On screen appeared the Alliance Supreme Commander. It was a tall, crystalline being with 6 arms and no visible face. Its voice came from everywhere at once. "Humans, you will surrender. Your defeat is mathematically certain. We have calculated all possible outcomes. Resistance equals destruction. Admiral." Stone looked at Robert, who sat in an observer chair, feet up on a console. Robert grabbed the microphone. Hey, Shiny, remember me? I'm the guy who shoved a mining charge up your predecessor's exhaust port 50 years ago. The crystalline being flickered. Robert Walker. You are supposed to be dead. Disappointed a lot of people with that one. Robert grinned. Here's our counteroffer. Leave now, or we'll make you wish math could save you. Illogical. Our fleet outnumbers yours 2 to 1. Our technology is superior. Our shields are impenetrable. Robert stood up and walked to the window. Captain. Marcus, show them what humans think of math. Outside, Captain Marcus's ship activated its chaos seed. 1 ship became 5. Then those 5 activated regular holoprojectors, creating 25. Other ships followed suit. Within minutes, the human fleet appeared to number in the hundreds of thousands. The Alliance fleet hesitated, their perfect formation wavering. Fire everything! Robert shouted into the The chaos began. Captain Lisa's ship fired its transformation flowers. An Alliance destroyer's shields turned into a giant soap bubble and popped. Captain John's invisible ship rammed through their formation while blasting "We Will Rock You" on all frequencies, causing their communication systems to overload. Captain Ava's ship teleported randomly, appearing inside the Alliance formation, firing, then vanishing. Each time she appeared, she left behind a surprise, a mine, a beacon playing human comedy shows, or just a really insulting banner. The Alliance tried to adapt. Their ships computed new strategies, adjusted formations, modified shield frequencies. But every adjustment met a new impossibility. Captain Frank had removed all his ship's computers and was flying purely on instinct. His unpredictable movements made him impossible to target. He flew loop-de-loops through their formation, his crew firing weapons manually out the windows. "This is impossible," the Alliance commander transmitted. "These tactics have no logical basis." Robert took the microphone. "Again, that's the point, Shiny. You can't calculate chaos." Then Robert gave the signal. Every human ship activated their chaos seeds simultaneously. The space around Earth became insanity incarnate. Ships multiplied, teleported, transformed. Weapons fired flowers, music, ancient Earth memes. One chaos seed turned an entire alliance. Squadron into a giant space puzzle that had to be solved to move. The thunder itself roared into battle. Robert had saved his best surprise. His ship's chaos drive didn't just affect the thunder, it affected space around it. Alliance ships near him started experiencing time backwards. They tried to fire weapons that unfired. Their shields protected them from attacks that hadn't happened yet. Admiral Stone watched in amazement as the mathematically superior Alliance fleet fell apart. Their perfect formations collapsed. Their synchronized movements became chaos. Their computers, unable to process the illogical happenings, started shutting down. They're retreating. Someone shouted, "Indeed." Alliance ships were jumping to hyperspace, but even that wasn't working right. Some jumped, but arrived 5 minutes in the past. Others jumped sideways through dimensions, appearing as abstract art before vanishing. Alliance commander's ship tried to maintain order, sending signals, calculating escape vectors. Then Captain Marcus did something genius. He flew all 5 copies of his ship at the commander from different angles, each one broadcasting a different version of the same surrender demand. One in interpretive dance, one in haiku, one just screaming. Crystalline being's form cracked. Literally cracked from the stress of trying to process the illogical. This ... This cannot be ... The calculations ... They promised. The commander's ship spun wildly, then jumped to hyperspace, leaving half its fleet behind. The remaining Alliance ships surrendered immediately, their crews begging to be kept away from the chaos seeds. As the dust settled, Admiral Stone turned to Robert. "We won. We actually won." Robert collapsed into his chair, suddenly looking every one of his years. We didn't just win, boy. We reminded the galaxy why humans survived this long. We're not the strongest or the smartest, but we're definitely craziest. 3 months later, the Alliance formally surrendered and agreed never to enter human space again. They added one specific clause. Under no circumstances will the human Robert Walker or his ship Thunder be allowed in Alliance space. The chaos is too much. Robert had the treaty framed and hung in the Thunder's Bridge, right next to a garden gnome. Epilogue years later, military academies would study the battle for Earth. They would try to make sense of it, create strategies from it, form doctrines around it. They would fail, because the lesson wasn't about tactics or technology. It was about humanity itself. When pushed to the brink, humans don't just adapt. They become something unpredictable, uncontainable, undefeatable, and somewhere in deep space, the Thunder still flies, held together with duct tape and determination, ready to remind the universe that humans don't fight fair, they fight to win. Asterisk.